Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by the United States Marine Corps. My name is Dan Hansis, coming to you from a virtual room filled with heroes. Mark Sessler, Greg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
We are almost there, Dan. All your, fancy free summer of just hanging out and having a total blast. It's almost over. It's time to get to work.
It's like one of those 80s movie montages where it's just frolicking in the surf and at the golf and stuff and just having the time of my life. That's how I describe the summer of 2020.
That's been the mood. And what's great now is we can be doing this show with, the regular season days away. And I have a child just up the hallway banging on the wall as I'm attempting to speak with you. So everything is going very well.
Great show we got for you. Good, Mark. I'm happy to hear that. Great show coming up for you. We're going to talk about our hero of the week, headlines from the future. We're going to give you some training camp winners now that training camps have wrapped. But first, let's get started with some news. We'll start with the Washington football team. Adrian Peterson no longer connected to Washington after the teams cut the star running back and they're going to move forward with Antonio Gibson and some other interesting players in that backfield. Greg, all day, 35 years old, one of the greatest backs of all time. Is this the end of the road?
I think he'll get another chance because he was running well at the end of the last year. He's not a guy who's going to help on passing downs. Maybe you wait until after week one because contracts are no longer guaranteed. But if you just watch the film, Peterson was absolutely a better player than plenty of running backs out there, including Leonard Fournette, who got a job pretty quickly. We're going to talk about him soon. So I think all day, get him back on the field. Maybe a team that has a chance to make the playoffs, unlike Washington.
Yes, it says a lot that at his age, a lot of people listed it as a surprise that he was let go. I mean, there were reporters saying they thought he was a lock for the roster. But, and Antonio Gibson is interesting. This is a guy who had 12 touchdowns off 71 touches in college. He had a game with 227 yards and 2 touchdowns off 9 touches against Southern Methodist. And then Bryce Love, as a junior, was a 2,000-yard rusher. So you got something there. I think that they are just basically trying to go younger in a Scott Turner system. Scott Turner was in Carolina with Christian McCaffrey for 3 years. He knows what he's looking for. And I think this gets them a little bit closer. Love Adrian Peterson, but not exactly a guy who is going to electrify you on third downs out of the backfield catching passes.
Listen, I know the fantasy heads out there are all pumped up about Gibson right now, but I'll tell you a fun fact. My junior year of high school on the varsity basketball team, they put me in the final minute of the game, and I hit 2 threes and a foul shot, finished as the leading scorer with 7 points. But guess what? That doesn't translate to the next level necessarily. I don't really care about his stats because they don't really mean much ultimately. I'm not in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I see literally zero parallel between you and Antonio Gibson on the athletic front, Dan. There's nothing going on there.
Apparently you didn't watch the Shield softball team. In other Washington football team news, 2-time champs, Dwayne Haskins is the starting quarterback. Greg, you got a ring too.
I got one. I came in.
I was the general manager. I know. I also believe I should have been given a ring. I was overlooked. Absurd.
It's in the mail. Wait by the mailbox. Dwayne Haskins is the starting quarterback against the Eagles in week 1. Really can't say this is a surprise, right, Greg?
No, and I just wish he had more talent around him. Their left tackle might be a player they just traded from the Raiders who wasn't even going to make the Raiders. Their number 3 wide receiver is Dontrell Inman, who's bounced all around the league. Their top tight end is Logan Thomas. We talked about the running backs are a big question mark. I think Haskins has a chance to show that he's an NFL quarterback, but it's going to be difficult with the lack of talent that's around him.
My problem is I think he's in a bad position. I'd say the same about someone like Gardner Minshew, that, you have to do a lot in 1 year on a bad offense before these two teams look like they could be in running for, Trevor Lawrence or one of the other big quarterbacks in the draft. And it puts new regimes into a really tough situation.
Look at Haskins. Nice little touch near the end zone. Played pretty well there at the end of the season. People slept on Haskins getting a little bit better. Don't give up on him, Dan. You were kind of burying him midway through last year.
I'm not giving up on him. I just think he's in a terrible situation there, and they're going to move forward without him. We'll see how it plays out. In other news, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, They add another running back to the mix. Leonard Fournette signs a deal with the team, a 1-year deal. This coming after the Jaguars cut ties with the former first-round pick. He now joins a crowded backfield, Greg, in Tampa, a backfield that has fantasy heads out there scratching their heads. They thought they had it all figured out with Ronald Jones and LaShawn McCoy. Now figure it out, kiddos.
Yeah, you dug your own grave, fantasy heads. I mean, everyone was all excited about Ronald Jones. If you were picking one team in the NFL that was going to pick up a veteran right at the start of the season, the Bucs would have been at the top of the list. This is not a huge surprise. They say Ronald Jones is the starter. I don't think that'll last forever. I just hope that everyone's happy once we get to week 5 or 6. I'm thinking about LaShawn McCoy, Ronald Jones, Fournette. It's a lot of mouths to feed, and it's up to Bruce Arians and ultimately Tom Brady to kind of keep them happy. If you start complaining, Brady is not going to like that.
I mean, I can think of another team that used a lot of running backs, some of them not necessarily household names, and that's New England with Tom Brady. You had, Rex Burkhead, you had James White, you got Sony Michel, and they like to use a lot of different runners up there. Maybe that just shows us that Brady has some influence, or maybe it shows us that Tom Brady doesn't really trust any of these guys. There's some names there, but what's behind them at this point if you're LaShawn McCoy? I will say, I think Fournette works as like a goal line hammer. He has had 18 touchdowns from within the 5 over the past 3 years. That's tied for 3rd in the league. I don't know what he's going to do from the 5 to 5 in between. I don't love the guy as a lead back, but they're just probably going to spend a month trying to figure out what they have.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't much of a goal line hammer for the Jags last year, where he was getting stuffed repeatedly. But I do like this idea of Tom Brady keeping Fournette in line. You've heard that he was a knucklehead at times in Jacksonville, and he has a chance here to get back his career back on track, because again, what was this guy, the number 4 overall pick?
That's why we're talking about him. If he was taken in the 3rd or 4th round, people would just think of him as, okay, he's kind of a replacement level big back. Like, there's a lot of those guys, and ultimately there's kind of a lot of Leonard Fournettes out there in terms of the talent that he showed.
I like the word knucklehead coming back into the lexicon, and it's sort of a soft jab, but it suggests something unpleasant.
I don't even really know what it means, but I'm just bringing something back from the 1940s because it's fun. In other news, speaking of Tom Brady, his former team, the Patriots, they needed a new QB after they gave Brady the kiss off. I don't care what Rosenthal says after the 2019 season. Well, Cam Newton's that guy, because he was not officially, because Bill Belichick likes to make things difficult, but we heard through the grapevine that Cam Newton was told in a team meeting that he is the starting quarterback for the Patriots as they enter week 1. Again, not a surprise, Mark, considering who else was on that depth chart. And it's just kind of a exciting new era now in New England.
Yeah, it was a month ago that we were all hot and bothered over this quarterback competition, but it really never took off. Stidham was dealing with injury stuff, and when he wasn't doing that, he was throwing completions to the defense. So I think this just makes complete sense, and it's a nice transition from Tom Brady, because we're at Stidham, you're going to be just comparing him to Tom Brady all day long. Cam Newton brings this whole different energy and an entirely different experience, and I really feel like one of the more intriguing things is to see what this offense will look like in week 1. It's not going to look like last year's. And what do the brain trust in New England have planned? I think it's going to be one of the, a lot of, old school Cam Newton type stuff. Greg, are you buying it?
I'm loving it. I think they're going to have some option football. I think Belichick is still smarting from his pupil. Brian Flores is the one who really ended the Brady era. It wasn't the Titans. It was Brian Flores and the Dolphins coming in there and taking that bye away from them and out-coaching the Patriots. That's embarrassing. So you come in this year, you don't have many receivers, you got a bunch of running backs, you got a pretty talented offensive line, you hear some word that they're doing option football in practice, and I love the fact that his teammates, Cam Newton that is, named him the captain. This guy's a leader. He gets people to follow him, and as long as he stays healthy, they're going to be watchable. You wanted them to be irrelevant, Dan, but they're going to be the most watchable, interesting Patriots team in a few years.
Well, yeah, they haven't been very fun to watch the last couple of years. As I've said on our podcast, which you could check out 3 times a week, it's not that I think they're going to be irrelevant. I just don't think they're going to be special anymore. And to me, I think Cam Newton is what he is at this stage of the game. We could all crank back the clock and pretend we're all 5 years younger, but that's not the way it's going to play out. And who's the guy going to throw to? I mean, Mo Sanu, for instance, a guy that got brought onto the team last year to make a Super Bowl pick. Belichick surrenders a second-round pick. Well, the Pats tell him goodbye this week. They cut ties, and that has to go down, Greg, and you track this stuff. You could write a book about the Patriots. You're so in love with this organization as one of the worst personnel moves in the history of Belichick's run in New England.
Yeah, I think so, because they thought they'd get 2 years out of him. You give up a pick. I don't think any move since trading for Chad Johnson and starting him in a Super Bowl where they left him in single coverage has hurt this team more than the Mo Sanu move. But you don't want him to be a progress stopper, right? When you got, dynamic playmakers like Jacoby Myers and Gunnar Olszewski in the mix, you got to get rid of Sanu. You got to just let these young guys flourish.
I mean, our friend Tom Curran, he said that they were at practice and that reporters were like taking their masks off their face saying, he is so slow. I think they just Belichick had no other choice at this point. And Sanu is not healthy.
Those gifted talent evaluators, beat reporters from 700 yards away.
They've seen a lot of good football.
You take them on. They have eyes on it. I don't know.
I don't know. Listen, Curran's great at his job. My point is, who do you have on this depth chart at wide receiver? You got 34-year-old Julian Edelman. You got Harry, who's very, up and down as a rookie, to put it nicely. You couldn't wait it out to see if Sanu, coming off a surgically repaired ankle, could get his body right. You say goodbye. I don't know. It just felt like a little bit of a rash move. But who am I to question the great Belichick?
You question him all the time, and I appreciate the courage on your part. But I wouldn't walk into a Subway store anytime soon. I would say this though, like Belichick, let's pick out the 2 or 3 things he's glaringly done wrong or didn't work out. I kind of trust the other 20+ year history of him being essentially the best general manager in the AFC. Yeah. So I'd
like to see how good a general manager is Bill Belichick going to be without Tom Brady. That's what I really want to find.
I know, but you're always pointing to this doom on the horizon, and then it never really arrives. So we'll see. This game has been going on.
You know what's arrived? Do you know what's arrived, Sessler? The post Tom Brady era has arrived. So let's see how good he is now.
Wild card team.
Hold that thought on Belichick. All right, we're just getting started here on Around the NFL. Coming up next, running back talk. Joe Mixon, he did get paid. Oh, Greg, I know you love talking money in the NFL. Coming up next. Welcome back to the broadcast. Let's continue to roll through the news in the NFL, and let's talk some running backs getting paid and a running back that wants to get paid. We'll start with the guy that got his money. Joe Mixon signs a 4-year extension with the Cincinnati Bengals, totaling $48 million. Mixon has been a guy that has really built a career in Cincinnati, become a rock for that team, and now he's got a payday to show for it, Greg.
It's an organization that took a lot of grief for drafting Mixon. It's amazing to think how far he's kind of come in the public eye since the domestic violence case that really followed him going into the draft. But in terms of his on-field play, I think he's a top 5 running back, full stop. I mean, people don't watch the Bengals. He might be my favorite running back just in terms of his style of play to watch. He makes defenders look bad. Like, he would be a lot better if they had a better offensive line, but he's dynamic, and it makes a lot of sense that they want to keep him around Joe Burrow for the next 4 years.
What is his style? Like, what do you like about him that makes him special?
He has great vision, and he can stop and start on a dime. I mean, that's it. He can move to the side like in a phone booth, and he just makes defenders look bad, where he can go side to side, and then he can explode like this. I don't know. He's just one of those guys, and he runs hard. I mean, you can't really quantify that, but you never feel cheated out of a Joe Mixon run.
There you go.
Yeah, and we just talked about a guy like Adrian Peterson that is a 2-down back, and Leonard Fournette, who's a 2-down back, and Mixon is extremely productive in the pass game, explosive. And this isn't just, hey, this is our starting running back, let's keep him around. I agree with Greg that when he's on, he is a top 5 type talent, and now you actually have a quarterback around him that can take some of the heat off of Mixon, who had to do everything alone last year with no AJ Green in the lineup. they're building something in Cincinnati. They're a little frisky, and it kind of shows you when you get that quarterback and that belief in the organization starts to rise, you're going to do things the Bengals might not have done in the past. They're active in free agency. They're starting to, keep their stars around. Things are changing.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Cincinnati later in the show. And while Joe Mixon, by the way, one more thing about Joe Mixon, I just got to say, I had a nice transition there, but I got to stay here for a second. The migraine move, not bad. And maybe he really did have migraines, but what a great nebulous injury to kind of sit out a few practices while your contract's getting worked out. And then immediately upon pen to paper, migraines are a history.
I mean, it's a tactic that we could use that tactic, Dan, if we needed to. Suddenly Dan's not available for 3 podcasts in a row, hike his salary up, and then suddenly Dan feels healthy. It's effective.
And then we'll be working in the apple orchards with Ricky Hollywood. So we don't want that to happen. So yes, Mixon gets paid. Alvin Kamara wants to get paid. The Saints star running back, he disappeared for a little while this week as contract negotiations hit a potential snag. He is now back with the team practicing. So there's the good news if you're a Saints fan and the two sides want to make something happen. Mark, there was a report out there that the Saints were even open to trading Alvin Kamara. This is kind of my least favorite story of the week because it all feels like a bunch of hokum.
Yeah, I look around the NFL at 32 teams and I can't find one that is so overtly it is Super Bowl or bust this year. Now that's true of them every year, but it's like, you're not going to have Drew Brees next season probably. So are you going to try to travel into whatever happens after this year with maybe Jameis Winston and no Alvin Kamara, or Taysom Hill and no Alvin Kamara? I mean, this could become the centerpiece of your offense. And he already is when he's on the field now. He wasn't healthy last year. I think, stock down on him last season is just like us being so recency bias oriented. 2 years ago, this was the most electric, exciting back in football.
It's complicated with him, though. Well, first of all, the Saints are so far over the 2021 salary cap. They pulled some jujitsu. I know Mickey Loomis does this. He always finds coins.
They'll figure it out, Greg.
But it's really wild right now, and paying young running backs is risky. The Christian McCaffrey contract made it complicated because the Saints always said they liked Kamara better than McCaffrey, and it's a little complicated because he was the most dynamic running back, complete running back in the league, I think, in his first 2 years. And he didn't look the same last year. And yes, it was because of injury, and you hope that's totally gone. You'd love to see it again. I think there's no player quite like him when he's right, but there's definitely some bad feelings going on, I think, right now between Kamara and coaches and the organization, and they do want to have everything simplified and happy before they get to week 1.
Greg, Mickey Loomis, he can pull some of that, Pelicans money over if they need to, finesse the cap. They've been doing that for years.
That used to be on your radar a lot. You didn't really trust that Loomis was involved with 2 organizations. Now that the Saints have
you bang that
pretty
drum.
good. Pretty good run here.
It's
pretty good run here. Do you take that back?
No, yeah, it seemed like a good hill to stand on, like a gentleman and a talented gentleman trying to run both an NBA team and an NFL team. So a lot to deal with. But he's kind of proven me wrong on the NFL front. I'm not really tracking the Pelicans day to day. You guys, maybe you are.
No, they're fine.
It turns out that he might have help. It might not just be Mickey Loomis alone making all decisions for both sports organizations. And by the way, I know there might be like a lover's quarrel situation going on with Kamara and the Saints, but if I'm able to get over taking Kamara ahead of Christian McCaffrey in my fantasy draft last year, the Saints should be able to look the other way.
Are you
on
over
whatever's
it?
happening
Are
right
you
now.
over it? You brought it up every week between that and Matt Ryan. It's like
the Matt Ryan
hold
thing.
These grudges. You hold these grudges.
Dan's literal takes on real life Matt Ryan are completely shaded by the fantasy experience of a couple seasons ago.
I think you're right about that. In other news, the Seattle Seahawks added another player to their wide receiver room, Josh Gordon. Yes, that Josh Gordon, now 29 years old, coming off 6 suspensions. And he's not even coming off it because he's still technically suspended right now, but he signs a 1-year contract with the Seahawks. Obviously, this is a team, Greg, that is set at number 1 receiver, Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf was excellent as a rookie last year, but they could use a little more depth. Maybe Gordon's that guy if he gets cleared to play.
I like the setup for him, not just the organization who knows him and is comfortable with him, and he presumably is comfortable with them, but that there's not pressure on him to be the old Flash Gordon, because he's not that guy. I think he's settling in, if he's similar to how he looks when we last saw him, to a part of his career when he's on the field that he's a role player. He's a number 3 guy, and you just hope, look, we've been through this before, that he can stay on the field. Everyone's rooting for him. He's kind of the face of fighting substance abuse in some way, and it's been tough to see him kind of in and out of the league over the last number of years.
The thing was, like 4 years ago when, it was the same narrative, the same story. He'd waltz into preseason and look like the best player on the entire field. And it was just like, oh, I get why the patience is there for him to finally kind of turn the tide. It says a lot that a team, on the weekend where you're going to get 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 wideouts, flushed out into the open market, that they're going after Josh Gordon. You could go somewhere younger, someone that's going to be there for you. I mean, it's the will he be there factor. It's like he's good and then he bites you in the butt like 3 weeks into it and you're left with nothing. I mean, as a Browns fan, I've lived it, Dan,
Yeah, of course you did. He was once upon a time their future cornerstone, and it just didn't work out. I mean, keeps on getting these jobs because people know that talent. Is it still there? I don't know. I'll put it on the radar again. I mentioned it on the podcast this week, but Antonio Brown, to me, if he ever gets back in the league, the Seahawks are one of those teams that will take on guys that have a checkered off the field history, and God knows that Antonio Brown checks that box. But wouldn't he just be a killer guy if you can get him in the lineup with that wide receiver group and Russell Wilson and Chris Carson? I don't know. I'll just kind of call it right now, and it won't matter.
It's a storyline to watch.
If it happens or not.
He's kind of sitting out there, and he's going to be mentioned throughout the first month or two of the season. When there's a big-time injury that hurts depth on some talented playoff-bound team, you're right. We're going to be talking about Antonio Brown on this show quite a bit. Get ready.
All right. Get ready. We're just getting started now. We're going to keep rolling. Coming up next, yes, every week we like to pick one hero, a hero of the week. And could it be coming from the team we like to call the G-Men?
Oh, boy.
Look at that dude. Time now for a Hero of the Week presented by Season 2 of The Boys, only on Amazon Prime Video. Yes, that was Joe Judge, the new head coach of the New York Giants, showing the boys how it is done. And you know what, Greg? This is the same Joe Judge that everybody's been killing for being too strict. And all of a sudden now he's everybody's best friend. How do you figure?
Well, we're suckers for it. I think we were the ones killing him last week. Now we want to, hug him and this guy's great. He gets it. He's fun. Why not? I mean, have a little fun. That's going to get your players a little more on board. And people should be excited about the Giants, even though this team isn't that exciting on defense on paper. I know our social guru, Amanda Carey, has got a dusty Eli Manning photo at her desk that hasn't been touched for 5 or 6 months. You got to get rid of that photo. You bring in Danny Dimes. It's Danny Dimes time. You got a fun offense with Saquon Barkley. At least this team should be a little more watchable.
I loved all the hot takes from reporters everywhere saying players can't stand this kind of stuff. Players are going to revolt and rebel by, mid-October. The building's going to burn. Well, it kind of is proving that maybe that's not the case. Perhaps this works. I'll say that, back in our league, when I played in Pop Warner, Dan, we had a coach that would just do a big old pizza eating contest in the middle and, do all sorts of mudsliding stuff. Those kids liked it. Now, these are not the same football players, but I like doing something a little different in the NFL. And I think it's kind of cool that it came from the King Grump, Belichick land. And this is what he's doing. I don't see Belichick doing this.
And
maybe
first
for
of
good
all,
reason.
Greg, let's start here. The social maven, Amanda Carey, no need to take down any Eli Manning photo. That man beat Bill Belichick twice in the biggest game in the world. He's a legend.
Ancient history
for the people
now.
that follow the team. The thing that was really funny about this Judge thing is kind of what you guys are hitting on here, that everyone, including us, we were kind of a little tongue-in-cheek with it, killing the guy for being the next Matt Patricia, the guy that's trying too hard to be Belichick. And now as soon as this happens, he slides in the mud and the players cheer. Now everybody's like, actually, Joe Judge kind of gets it. and the players love him. I've never seen a greater about face on football Twitter than I saw when this video went viral. And, you know, credit to the Giants social team and Joe Judge himself for changing the narrative, even if that wasn't what they were intending.
Football Twitter is basically just football middle school. I mean, it's Twitter middle school. It's just like you have all the types that you had in middle school, the brainiac football dudes, like the fun football guys, like the guys that aren't buying anything.
What
like
are
the
you,
cool
Mark?
dudes? You know, Dan and I are kind of outsiders. We just kind of operate with cigarettes in our mouths. We're cool. We're driving around in cars. Right?
Okay, then what am
Bad
I?
boys.
I'm curious.
You're the football. You're sort
of.
of. You're definitely more in like you're talking about DVOA every 5 minutes. You're in that sort of like nerdy. You're in the AP math class, and Dan and I aren't going anywhere near that.
I think it's just been a football desert
ahead.
this trading camp. We just need something to talk about. We have no other information. So Joe Judge jumping in the mud is like the biggest news that we had in a couple weeks.
And let's give Joe Judge credit too. That was a really nice slide. Great form, because what happens too much, especially that's supposed to be mimicking rainy conditions. Guys try to scoop up that ball and run 60 yards because they want the glory. No, just fall on it, big man. Fall on it and get the offense back on the field.
I'd ask this: what if the ball had slipped out and he didn't recover? What if we find out when they do the tell-all biography that was like the fourth take of that slide, and that's an in-house secret? That's the kind of thing Amanda would know as a social guru.
Mm.
All right,
that was send that video out.
Hero of the Week, presented by Season 2 of The Boys. Coming up next, we give you some headlines from the future. But first, let's have a look at the latest trailer from the Amazon original series, The Boys.
You are under a misconception that you are our most valuable asset. You are not. Oh my God! Who do you think you are?
I'm Stormfront. I'm the new girl.
Noted.
What do we do now?
This is a war.
We're gonna take her down.
You are fun.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Now it's time, with week 1 closing in, to share some headlines from the future. This is when we tell you what's coming, what you will be talking about once football kicks off in earnest. Greg, why don't you get us going?
All right, my headline is related to the NFC East. Same old Cowboys. Eagles win the NFC East, which in retrospect is kind of a lazy headline right now. Not really going for any wordplay or anything. I just wanted to point out that I think people are sleeping on this Eagles team. They got a lot of injuries right now, but I think they've got some championship mettle. I think they got the better coach in Philadelphia. And I think Carson Wentz can have a great season. It's not really about the quarterback, though, because Cowboys have the quarterback. I think the Eagles ultimately have the players, and I trust them a little more than this hyped up Mark Sessler Cowboys Love Fest team.
I mean, if you want to talk about hyped up Love Fest, you've been doing this with the Eagles for years now. And so at some point, they're going to make you right.
Yeah, they did. They won the Super Bowl once.
Well,
and they've gotten back to the divisional round. They got 15 guys injured. They get back to the playoffs. The Cowboys, if they can't beat them last year, they're not going to beat them.
You just act like everyone thinks the Eagles are not a real functioning team. When I think most people think that, Carson Wentz is probably a top 10 quarterback, and there's a lot of new talent there.
I just want the universe to fall in on itself, and both of you guys are wrong. I don't know. Washington, 15-1.
Maybe Joe Judge, our hero of the week, coach of the year.
Maybe.
That would be something.
All right, here's my headline from the future. It goes like this. Genius recognized. Bill Belichick is the 2020 NFL Coach of the Year. It's going to happen. Let's just all face facts that for years and years and years, when Belichick built up the resume of arguably the greatest head coach ever, he wasn't winning NFL Coach of the Year, not nearly enough. I bet he has probably a few of those trophies, but you can make the argument he should have won many years. But now this year, after he kicked Brady out the door and they're starting over and everyone's picking the Bills to win the division, now when he wins 9 or 10 games and gets that wild card or even steals the AFC East, again, they're going to do it. Remember when Martin Scorsese finally got the Oscar in 2006, I believe it was, for The Departed, He'd been nominated 7 times, including 5 times for Best Director, and lost every year. And then finally they were just like, you know what? This guy, I know this isn't his best movie. The Departed's fine. It's definitely not near Goodfellas or his greatest work or Taxi Driver. But you know what? This is more an honorary achievement award, so they gave him the big statue. I think that's what's going to happen with Bill here.
I feel like Dan is like picking his worst case scenario. It's almost like a counter, like mental move where he doesn't want this to happen, but at least if it does, he'll be proven right.
Right. If you have like sort of sneaky pot shop at the Patriots, drink, please. It's coming in every block on this show. I do think, though, Dan, you have a point that this would be the year where it's like we just assumed New England was going to go 13-3, and he should have been coach of the year all those times. This time, he had to do something different, and the narrative's juicier. Exactly. It's fresh, so that's how these things work. I hear
Ron
you.
Rivera's won it twice in the last 10 years, and Belichick hasn't won it in the last 10 years. I mean, Ron Rivera's a good coach, but come on.
It's a Departed situation coming to your living room. Mark, close us out.
Well, I think you'll find that I don't quite agree with you, Dan, because here's my headline, and I did try to put a little buzz into the words. Let's put it up there on the screen if we can.
Humble brag.
Hobby horses silenced, : you got to use the colon in the headline. Zach crowned king in Queen City. This is how you get coach of the year. You're 2-14 a year ago. You've got a great young quarterback in there. Weird year. You get him up to snuff by September. Tough thing for it. We had no idea who Zach Taylor was a year ago. Zach Taylor will be coach of the year when they finish 9-7. They'll be one of the buzziest teams going into the offseason. Their narrative is perfect. Cincinnati has been 6 feet under for so long at this point. It's going to change that town. It's going to change that entire football fan base at the flip of a switch. That's how you win coach of the year. And you know what? They're going to take down Belichick if they need to. If they face each other, goodbye, Patriots. Not even sure if they're playing.
First of all, most people, I would say 95% of our viewing audience does not know what a hobby horse is, and nor do I. Do you want to explain it to people?
It has a different meaning to me. It kind of means like, jabronis who, giggle at someone like the Bengals and Zach Taylor. But I think in the olden times, it was literally like a small horse that like little boys and girls rode on when they were toddlers. I believe that's where it came
All right,
from.
we'll have to look. We'll have our producer Ricky Hollywood look that up for the end of the show. I don't know. I like what you're doing here, Mark. This is classic Sessler. I know you so well. You're covering the bases here because you're either right about this prediction, and Cincinnati is an upstart team, and if they are, and they're 9-7, and then the Ravens and the Steelers are excellent, the Browns are going to be terrible. But if the Bengals stink, maybe the Browns are good instead, and then you're covered there. Either way, you're fine. I like this.
This is the Jets fan telling us about crowning Belichick as coach of the year. I mean, you're basically just, it's a total tell. It's a total projection.
This headline makes me miss the days, our humble days. We were writing our own headlines on NFL.com, and Sessler had some zingers. You would have a lot more hobby horses in the headlines back on NFL.com in about 2013, 2012, those days.
Well, many corrected by more able editors, and so to get to talking to. Excuse me, have you ever taken a course in journalism or headline writing? Why are you here?
Mark was known in the newsroom as the king of SEO. I mean, that guy knew how to get trigger results on Google, and everyone was really envious, myself included. All right, we're just getting rolling here. We can continue the train, the hype train in Cincinnati. We talk about training camp. Who won it? Who is the big victor, this training camp champion in 2020? Coming up next. Time now for a road to victory presented by the United States Marine Corps. Gentlemen, it is time to crown a champion of training camp. Well, it happens every year. Greg, get us going. Who won training camp?
I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. You want to know why? I didn't hear anything about him. Yeah, I didn't hear any bad news. That's basically all you want to do. in training camp. Just avoid it. There's no preseason games. Like, I didn't hear the Colts mentioned. There's no injuries. There's no nothing. You do hear a little bit about Phillip Rivers being
that
totally
doesn't look
comfortable.
right.
I'm just saying, looking comfortable in an offense he knows well. You hear about DeForest Buckner fitting in well, but this is a team that had, to me, a lot of injury concerns, and they got through this month scot-free. T.Y. Hilton is looking good, and most importantly, they got me picking them to win the Super Bowl. And when you get that sort of preseason bump, that belief from such an important member of the football media, it's just going to have a lot of wind in your sails going into this.
It matters. It matters. I mean, their social team is putting out clips of Jonathan Taylor, the rookie running back, put to Tchaikovsky's the Nutcracker, darting through linebackers. I think they're feeling themselves a little bit in Indianapolis.
Yeah, very promising team. But I have to say, and maybe I'm telling on myself, I have not seen Phil Rivers in a Colts uniform until that clip just now. And
right, that's what I'm saying.
Look right. It doesn't look good. And I feel like that's going to hurt them. I'm just going to call it 7-9.
Oh,
Mark,
damn,
you're up. What? Well, it's the uniform.
I can't believe you just said that. I'm going Cowboys. And I have been anti-Dallas hype for a long time. I don't typically fall for this. But I kind of point to what Greg just said. Not a lot of bad happened, but you hear good things. They went and got traded for – they signed Everson Griffin to fill a really big hole at pass rush. 31 other teams did not. You pair him with DeMarcus Lawrence. That was their biggest iffy scenario, I thought, going into camp. CeeDee Lamb looks like the real deal, according to reports. So your number one draft pick is working out. And I had questions whether Mike McCarthy, round 2, would work. But I love the fact that he kept Kellen Moore around. They didn't go into some stale old offense. He is open-minded to using what worked really well last year. Kellen Moore is an up-and-coming coordinator. I think that a lot is going on with Dallas that points to a division title. I'm sorry, Greg. I'll say one last thing. Leighton Vander Esch, who we loved 2 years ago, is healthy. You only got 4 games out of him last season. Arrow up on the Dallas Cowboys. They are my Super Bowl pick to go and lose to the Ravens. So kind of a good thing there if you're Dallas. Kind of good.
One thing that I have to buy in with Greg on this is that to be a champion, nothing bad can really happen. Gerald McCoy blowing out his quad, that was a big loss for them in training camp, and that is
It's not Gerald
an
McCoy
issue
from
along
3
their
years
defensive
ago,
line.
but yeah,
He was still playing at a high level last year.
It's not a great
now. scenario,
but they weren't injury ravaged like the Eagles.
I mean, a Cowboys team with a ton of hype coming out of training camp. What could go wrong? Never happened before.
And you know what? You guys have been doing this too long to be making this mistake, to be picking teams to go to the Super Bowl just because they had a nice training camp. I'm not picking the Bucs to go all the way, but I am picking them as my training camp champion because they check all the boxes for winning training camp, which is, yes, you have health, you have fresh faces, and you have glowing camp reports, and you have marquee talent. What's bigger on the marquee than Tom Brady? So it's just like James Palmer, our own James Palmer, NFL Network. They sent him down there for the month, and all you heard was how great Tom Brady and the offense looked, and the spirals were tight, and Bruce Arians and Leonard Fournette. And I just think we'll see how it actually plays out when this team has to go win games. But in terms of a training camp narratives around this team, it is all pretty.
I have to believe that James Palmer probably is just the good luck charm they needed. I mean, when you send James Palmer to cover your team, things start to roll in the right way.
Good looking city there in Tampa now with Brady. You got James Palmer there. I'm with you. I'm buying the hype. Like, they kind of convinced me that Tom Brady is looking better for whatever reason right now than he was in the last year of Foxborough. I don't really know if that's going to be true, but they've convinced me that that's the case.
I'm totally on the fence on this one. I wish it's my job to have takes and things like that. I have no idea how it's going to play out, and that's what kind of makes sports fun. Now we get to watch and see how it does play out with Tom Brady as a Buccaneer. All right, that was Road to Victory presented by the United States Marine Corps. Coming up, one final thought. Make it count, boys. Enjoying the Around the NFL broadcast? Well, you'll love the Around the NFL podcast, the #1 NFL podcast in the game. By our estimation, at least. News, analysis, and coverage of every game delivered, as always, with a touch of mirth. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Madone, those quarantine beards aren't getting any nicer. I hate that promo.
Look at those hotties.
Oh my goodness. All right. Now it is time to welcome in the great Ricky Hollywood, Erica Tamposi, our producer, for one final thought. Hey, Ricky, did you do us that favor and look up hobby horses?
I sure did, and actually, Mark was correct. It is a children's toy, and I think we can flash this graphic up right here. Yes, hobby horse, noun, a child's toy consisting of a stick with a model of a horse's head. So, but, you know, he did make sense at the end, a preoccupation or a favorite topic.
I think I suggested it was a rocking horse. I forgot it was like that little horse head on a stick thing, which I never owned as a child.
Okay, I tried to give you some credit there, but
thank you.
Yeah, Ricky, good job. Thank you for that. Let's do one final thought. Mark, get us going.
Well, you know, Dan, you and I we had the fortune to appear on the Chargers podcast with Chris Hayrie, and we had a great time talking about a team that has a lot of interesting stuff going on, Hard Knock Stars. And what I noticed, though, because, you know, you and I both have these plants, so does Greg behind our shoulders. I just said, hey, Chris, who's got the better plant? And he made it very clear that mine was the lesser plant of the two. And I'm not quite sure where to go with that. At this point, Dan, he liked yours better.
Yeah, I was told that this is called a mother-in-law plant because it never dies, no matter how much you neglect it or how much you overwater it. I like my plant, but I like yours too, I have to say.
I mean, I'm going to just reveal that mine couldn't be more fake. It is made of, just man-made substances. It's never been in the earth, but there's a corner back there, a lot of echo. So it's for you guys. It's for the show.
All right. Greg, you're up.
All right. I like Hard Knocks too. I love it, but it's not the only reality show out there about football. I want to give a little plug to Last Chance U on Netflix. I know a lot of people haven't seen this, but the ones that have love it, because if you love football, like, there's no way you're not going to love it, because it's a level of football where the players have to have such an unbelievable love for the sport to keep going. It's kind of inspiring. It makes you feel things as a human. I really love John Beam, the coach that they highlighted in Oakland this year. He wasn't kind of a big jerk like the previous coaches. I recommend it. If you were ever going to watch a season 5 is the one to jump in on.
Really? Sometimes I wonder if you have points on the back end with that show, because you've been talking it up for years.
I'm telling you, it is an amazing show.
All right, I'm gonna
he also
give it a
had
shot.
to prove that he was human. Right. It gives you feelings as a human.
My one final thought. I love having Erica here. One final thought. Hey, Mekhi Becton, the left tackle, the Jets' first-round pick. It's not been all bad in camp for the Jets, although there's been some negative storylines. Becton looks great. He looks like the real deal, but also the real deal. Look at this necklace this man got. This giant man has a giant necklace. Admit one, he's the big ticket. That's his nickname. It only cost him $175,000, and it's a kilo of gold, 120 carats of white diamonds. I was thinking about this. I've never bought a necklace, let alone any necklace to compare to what Mr. Becton has. Do you guys have a high-end purchase that stacks up, relatively speaking?
I have 8 shirts. No.
The engagement ring for my wife got a little money under the table from my previous employers right before that. Nice little bonus, and went right to the ring.
All right. The IRS has just noted that. Erica, close us out.
You guys, last week, Trivia Friday went so well, and I gave you some easy ones, so I thought it's time to go back for round 2, and this time I'm going to start with Greg, okay? Who was the first player drafted in the first NFL draft in 1936?
Ooh, I have no idea.
Jay Berwanger? Dan, what team was originally named the New York Titans?
The Jets.
The Jets. Mark, which NFL team features a helmet logo on only one side of the helmet?
Steelers.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Impressed, guys.
Thank you for watching the Around the NFL broadcast presented by the U.S. Marine Corps. Ricky, what is with you in game shows lately? I need to know what's happening here.
I love them.
Till next.